In this video, what I want to try to do is explain different kinds of movements, what you see written on the dial, hear people say, and just kind of, there's people out there who may just be getting into collecting vintage watches. Maybe they see a vintage watch on eBay or in the thrift store, and they kind of want to know what they're going to be getting based on what they see or what they hear or what they've read. And this is kind of one of those videos that I'm going to do my best to explain. And I'm going to start with this, which is just a typical manual wind movement. They call them mechanical. This one is 17 joules right here, and this is the balance. So what you see is that when you see joules, maybe written on the dial, 17 joules, 21 joules, whatever, that refers to these kind of little joules here that are pressed into bushings for reducing the friction on the pivot of the different wheels. Typically you're going to find them between 7 and 17. They do have 5 joules, 21 joules, and that would just indicate, so for example, if you have 17 joules, that's going to be a basic. What you're looking at here is a cap joule. Underneath that is a whole joule. That's for the balance, and that's on the balance cock. And then underneath on the main plate, you're going to have the same. You're going to have a whole joule and a cap joule that reduces the friction on the pivot of this. That would be 4 joules right there. So then you also have 2 joules on the pallet fork, which engages with the escape wheel, and then you have the roller joule, which is a joule that is set on the roller, which is just underneath the balance wheel, so that's pressed onto the balance staff. So that would be 7, and then of course as you add the joules, you'll have them in the different wheels. And I'm going to try to make this as simple as possible and not go into any different complications or anything else. So for example, that would be a cap joule. That's on the escape wheel right there, which is typical to find a joule on a cap joule on the escape wheel. These are just whole joules right here. And this one has a little spring in the joules, and that's for shock protection. And sometimes you will see, let me take off the watch that I'm wearing right now, move this out of the way, I'm not opening this up, you'll see Incabloc, 21 joules Incabloc, and this is a manual wind. Okay, so what Incabloc is, I have one over here. This one is a Movado 370. This is just a parts movement, you can see right there. And if you can see that little spring right there just above the balance, that is Incabloc. And the advantage of Incabloc, and the reason that a lot of people will put that on the, or would put that on the dial or advertise for it, is because this was the most commonly used, and it's also the most friendly to somebody who's going to repair the watch, because it's actually hinged over here. So when you want to oil the joule, you can just kind of open up the spring, fold it back, and pull out the joules, and then once it's done, as opposed to a lot of others, there were the one that I just showed. You also have, here's a little KIF kit. KIF was another manufacturer of springs for shock resistance. They had the KIF Flector, which is the most popular. Well, this little kit just has the tools to remove it, and then you got these little pill-shaped jars in there with the springs themselves. But KIF was another one that was popular, but Incabloc was the most used, and they're still used today. It's some of the best out there. It's the easiest to work with. You also have, for example, the older watches that do not have any sort of absorption for the balance at all. This would be, let's see, this one is, well, here, it's a Movado 150M. But anyway, this one is just a joule that's just kind of screwed onto the balance cock right here. So you can see that, and then you can see the little brass fittings that hold the joules in this one, so you can actually unscrew this and replace the entire fitting, as opposed to punching out the joules. That's an older watch. And then as far as joules go, here's an example. This is 7 joules. So you can see that instead of being jouled on the gear train, you just have brass fittings. So you have the steel pivot just coming up through these brass fittings. Obviously, those will wear down, and that's one of the advantages of having joules in there, is to reduce friction, and also the wear on the pivots and the joules is going to be considerably less, and I hope that I didn't say anything wrong there. Okay, so that would be a jouled one. Now I'm going on to, let me move this stuff out of the way. You might hear the expression Roscoff or pin lever or pin pallet. And I've got a little box over here with all this stuff in here that I'm trying to do. So these are some examples, if I can find all the ones that I set aside, because I've got tons of these things. And that might be enough right there. Well, I'm digging through the boxes of electric watches right now. Where did I put it? Where did I put it? Where did I put it? This would be fine, I guess. Well, anyway, pin lever, pin pallet, Roscoff was a brand. Those were watches that didn't have any joules, or maybe 1 joule or 2 joules. So you can see that one says 0 joules. Some of the more popular pin lever, pin pallet joule watches were Timex, Ingersoll, Westclocks. This is a Westclocks right here. Those were American watches. Baumgartner was a popular one, the European watch. You see those a lot when you come into contact with these. And anyway, so yeah, it's just instead of having a jouled pallet fork with 2 joules that engage with the escape wheel, they're just little pins that stick up from the pallet fork. Do not have any. I probably have some sitting around, just the pallets, just to show that, but essentially it's just 2 pins that stick out the top, and those engage with the escape wheel. So that would be a pin lever or pin pallet. So if you hear that expression, it just essentially means that, you know, if it does have a joule, it may have 1 joule. And I usually, when you see it, it'll be the cap joule on the balance cock. But, you know, typically it doesn't have any joules at all. And there are different configurations. Like I said, the more popular of the European was the Baumgartner. You run across those quite a bit. And here's back to something, and I don't want to start mixing stuff up. All right, now we move on to the automatic. All right, so now we're talking about the automatic. So if you see something that says self-winding or automatic, what that means is that it has a rotor. This is a Felsa Bidinator, or Bidinator, B-I-D-Y-N-A-T-O-R. And these were the first birotational automatic watches. You also have unidirectional, which means it only winds in one direction, whereas a bidirectional winds in both directions. And as this turns, there's a series of gears that engages with the ratchet wheel and winds the arbor and the barrel, and essentially winds the watch. So you can see that, you know, as you move your wrist, this weight uses gravity and falls to the bottom and actually winds the watch. It's a simple complication. Well, it's considered a complication, but it's a fairly simple complication. And a lot of times these rotor assemblies or self-winding automatic assemblies will come off in one piece, sometimes not so much. That's if you're taking it apart. Now you might also hear the expression bumpers. Bumpers are some of the earlier watches, whereas that one is rotating 360. Here's an example of, this is a Mito Multifort, and as you can see, there's a spring here and a spring here. So instead of rotating 60 or 360 degrees, what happens is it hits that spring, bounces back, and as you move your wrist, it just, what'll happen is the rotor, the weight, will actually hit the spring, bounce back, hit the spring, bounce back, and just keep bouncing. And you can feel it on your wrist when you're wearing it. I also have, I don't know if I showed the movement or not when I did my Omega, but several companies, these were early. I mean, they made them up until the 50s, probably even the 60s. The bumpers were around, but they're not as common as, say, for example, this style right here. So yeah, that's the two. So if you hear bumper automatic, what it means is the weight actually bumps against the spring, just bumps back and forth. Your typical self-winding automatic watch just has a rotor that rotates 360. Some of them bidirectional, some of them unidirectional. So let me move these out of the way. Okay, next up is the electric watch. Sometimes it'll be called electronic. Let me see, I've got a couple here. This one is the Legrand electronic. This one is a Seiko. That is called the electronic. And then this one is a Zodiac. And that one is electronic. I have one that says electric. Okay, here's a Vantage, so that says electric. So if you see electric or electronic, usually that means that what happens is, here's one with a battery in it. The Legrand has a battery in it. None of these are working currently. I do have two that I already posted videos of, and there's an Elgin and a Hamilton. These were originally produced by Hamilton, or the first electric watches were produced by Hamilton. That was the Hamilton 500 in 1957. And the most sought afterable would be the Ventura, the Pacer, and the Vega, and there's others that had the unusual shapes and were very popular and are very expensive nowadays. They actually make, they've remade over the years different versions with quartz movements, but anyway, the original ones were like this. So you had a battery, so it was battery powered, and you had a circuit board, and you have a balance wheel that swings back and forth. So it's more or less of a mechanical watch with the balance wheel that is actually driven by a circuit board. And in this instance, you can see that there's a coil under here and there's a magnet on the balance. So what happens is the coil produces an electrical current, which causes the magnet to have the balance wheel go back and forth, and that drives the gear train. And the battery would go right here underneath that bridge. And inside the Seiko, you can see the same situation here, whereas you have the coil and the magnet. And then I had the Vantage, which I just put back, which did have a different so on this Vantage right here, ooh, almost dropped it. You can see the coil is actually on the balance itself. So there's the coil right there. And again, it rotates. And these were used by all different companies. Again, Hamilton was the first to come up with this idea, and they were used until the 1970s. Timex used, all different companies made them. Timex used them. The Swiss made their own versions of it. So yeah, I think most of them are Swiss. This is going to be a Swiss right here. The Zodiac, wherever the Zodiac went under my wrist. So ESA, EB, I believe were companies. I keep putting it under my wrist or dropping it. This is one Spacetronic I would like. It's missing the, I'm sure it needs probably coil and other parts, but this would be a nice one to get working. Unfortunately, I do not have the back for it. This was just, so right now it's kind of, if I get lucky, which chances are I'm not, I can get this thing back together, but right now it's kind of going into the little pouch watch, or little Ziploc pouch here for, so this is an FB 1230. All right, so now we move on, get these out of the way. Find the back for See the Lagant. And after we have the electrics, we move on to the Accutron. And so the Accutrons came out in the early 60s. This is an example of a 218, which was later. The 214, this one, the hand fell off. But this is the 214. The 214 has the setting. You set it over here. You pull this up, and then you can set the watch. But when you open it up, you can see it's got a tuning fork. So this is the actual Accutron from the 1960s. Bulova come out with things called Accutrons that are actually just quartz watches. But as you can see, it's got the tuning fork here and then the coils inside. So this is a 214. This was the original. The most sought after of the 214s, or of any really of the Bulova Accutrons, was the Space View. My father I have it in the bedroom. It's a 214 that he got as a graduation gift from high school. That's currently not working. Like I said, it's still in the box, but it unfortunately doesn't work. But my uncle got the Space View, so chances are I'm never going to see that watch. I'd like to have it. None of these are working currently. But anyway, so that is the 214. And it's got the little ring here to tighten that. I keep this one with my father's watch. They're very similar in style. So you can see the 214 had the crown, the stem at the 4 o'clock, as opposed to the setting over there, and it's going to be very similar. And this is the 218. This is actually a 218-2, but it's still a 218 model. And there it goes. Now again, you can see the battery would go here, and your tuning forks are here, and your coil is there. Coils tend to go out on these, so you can see it's a 218-2G. It's still a 218 model. So yeah, then you have the Accutron, which was the next step. These were the fully electronic, as opposed to the electric, which had the balance. And then I did a video on the, I can't remember what the model number was, that used the round coil. So instead of having the coils in the tuning fork, it had a round coil that the tuning fork sat over. I still have to do some fine tuning on that one. Alright, so next up is the most common that everybody sees, is just the quartz watch. So you don't have the tuning fork. What you have is a coil, and then you have this little cylinder right here which holds the quartz crystal, and that vibrates, and then the coil, which is a very, very delicate thing that you do not want to touch. There really isn't a whole lot to look at when you're looking at these. Let's see what that is. Just kind of a Swiss Army thing that doesn't have a back to it, but you know, these are the most common watches that you come across. Not a whole lot to look at, nothing exciting in there. Just oscillates like that. And then after that, let me see what we have in this box. Well, I don't think it's in the box. What am I going to grab next? Well, these are different kinds of quartz watches. So, for example, you have the Citizen Eco Drive, which is a quartz watch, but what it uses, and let me throw this one in there too, something just fell on the floor. That was my grease for the setting mechanism. So these are two solar powered watches, I guess you could say, to some degree, in that they both do use a battery, but instead of just a standard battery, the sun or the light actually charges a capacitor in that, and kind of, you don't have to replace the battery nearly as often as you would with a standard battery. So you know, it's not that it's completely 100% solar powered and you never have to replace the battery again. It's just that the battery will last longer, and a lot of these things will tend to go to sleep if it's kept in a drawer or something in the dark. So what it'll do is it'll conserve the consumption so that it's not sucking up the juice in the battery and having it last a little bit longer. I brought 2 boxes of stuff in here, and okay, there's what's up next. So yeah, this is solar powered. Seiko also makes them. It's just that these also, I got another one over here. I've got such a mess here that this is, oh. So this is a Casio Tough Solar right here, and it works, and this is Anadigi. So if you hear somebody say Anadigi, it's analog and digital. That's kind of, you know, goes without saying, but it's got the little digital clock right down there, and then it's got the standard hands for just regular analog type thing. And then I guess last up, what I'm going to talk about is, I just saw it here, the Kinetic watch, the Seiko Kinetic. And in some ways it's similar to the solar powered watch in that it does have a battery, it does have a capacitor that charges up, but it's like the automatic. So it has a rotor, and what happens is as you move your wrist, similar to the automatic watch, it supplies power, it charges up the capacitor in there. And this one has the I have shown this one before. I have actually 3 of these things now, the Kinetics, and I've had to replace the capacitor in all of them, really. I think I have another one that's just complete junk. But so if you see Kinetic on a Seiko watch, that means that it's the essentially a quartz automatic watch that just charges up the rechargeable battery. So I think I've tried to cover, well, I can't say I think I've tried to cover. Let's see. So you have the Kinetic, solar powered quartz. These are all quartz. Your standard quartz, your Accutron through the decades, let me see if I can find the Zodiac, because that one was already open. Oh, I put it in the box here. And you got the Zodiac. That's the electric. And you have the, well, I don't, this is kind of pointless because I've got a huge mess here. Well, okay, so then you got the automatic. You got the pin lever. And then you got your standard manual wind watch, mechanical. So Hamilton, I know, says mechanical on their khaki watch that I have. There's an automatic and then there's a mechanical. So the mechanical is just a manual wind, whereas the automatic is an automatic. And that's why, you know, just they're both mechanical watches. It's just that they chose to refer to the manual wind as a mechanical watch. So I'm hoping this helped out. I know I'm going to have to do a lot of editing, but anyway, so yeah, that's just kind of taking you through the different movements and showing you what's out there. And if you're new to watches, like I said, or you just want to start collecting, you're not sure what different things mean, hopefully I helped, you know. So anyway, you know, I just don't like to show pictures. I like to actually, you know, have something in my hand to show people this is what it does, because you can see a picture all day and it doesn't really help you out. It gives you an idea, but I like to show the stuff. And I've got more than enough of this stuff sitting around here. And if you want to go into electric watches, there's a Waltham. There's a Benris. There's a Timex. And another Timex, another Timex. Let's see what this one is. Okay, there's a Halbros. Timex had a whole bunch of them. Anyway, what's this right here? Here's another pin lever. Okay, but yeah, and then I've got another little box of Accutrons, but I decided I was going to do the 218 to 214. I've got plenty of all this stuff sitting around here. I mean, if we look at this mess, this is my table. This is what I work on. Need to shoot a video. Need to shoot a video. All this is just this. This is a pocket watch I'm working on. I've got my tools there. I've got my cleaning machine there. Well, this is the Movado movement. That needs to go back in with that. Let me see. This is an old Elgin that I'm working on. I had to work on the hairspring for that. That was all bent, you know, so I got the hairspring good. It's just the setting mechanism I got to deal with that. This is the Diantis that I'm working on. There's an anvil. This is a 17 jeweled watch, but it's set up like a pin lever. As far as, like, you see that that little clamp that holds down the barrel, that's not good, but that's giving me problems. There's my world time. That's what I use as a clock. And then over here I've got a whole bunch of stuff. So you can see this is a pigsty. This is a mess, and this is disgusting. And you got my oil over here, and let's see, that's my Kif. Got a couple of movements I need to put away. I got an Elgin pocket watch over there that needs to be fixed. I just knocked over my stand. And I got another Elgin pocket watch. I need to work on that. There's a loop there, fish tank over there. But anyway, this is just, you know, I'm constantly knocking stuff over and knocking stuff down. But anyway, so yeah, that's what I've got. Hopefully this helped out. And if you like the video, click like, subscribe. Thanks for watching. Bye.